Hello, I'm Robert, and you're welcome here in my busy little shop. On today's episode of What's on My Workbench, this is going to be either really interesting, really scary, or what are you doing? It's going to be one of those three categories. When you get down here in the video a little bit, you can just type that in as a comment and I'll know where it's coming from. But I was thinking a lot about this particular project. I'll show it to you here in a minute. But I've been thinking a lot about it because I've had my channel now for the end of this year. So I guess 2.5 years, easiest way. I think it's a little bit more than that, but about 2.5 years. In that length of time, I have 620 videos at the point that this video here is released. I think that's about right, 620. And I know some of you have watched probably the majority of those, but a lot of you may have clicked on the video just for this thumbnail. I've got to come up with a unique thumbnail for this one. But I've been all over the board as far as project I worked on. And early on, I had other stuff in there at a higher degree, some tool restorations. There's even some travel videos and hiking and such. But 2 years ago, I narrowed it down. I thought maybe it was a little bit confusing having it, so I have another channel for my outdoor activities, and then this one here is gravitated heavily towards the leather side of things. At a recent show, I had a lady in the booth, and she asked me to make or to buy one of the totes I had. And I was going to say, the make part was she wanted me to make an adjustment to it, and she asked me to put this little strap on it here to help keep it closed. So in the process of talking about this, she asked me, do you do any restoration work? And I said, yeah, I've done some restoration work. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but I restored some chairs, have been left out in the weather and was coming apart. And I've done a number of other restoration. Let me set this out of the way. Restoration videos. And so I said, yeah, sure. What do you got? Well, I have a purse. I'm like, cool. She goes, I'll go get it. So when she came back with it, we're almost there. She returned with this purse and asked me if I could make it functional again. So enough of a build up there. I think you're either going to be, well, like I said before, you type in there which one you think it is, crazy or whatever. But let me get you over on the workbench and I'm going to show you today's project, and we're going to see if we can come up with a solution to return this to useful life. I do appreciate you taking time to be within the shop today. Here's what we've got to work with, and what in the world is that? This is a purse that is made from an armadillo. Let me pan back here. It's a little distorted here, but you can see it all. But look at this. It's an armadillo. Is that crazy or what? You can see its paws here and here. And it's had a kind of a tough life, I think. At first I thought this was damage on there, but that's thread where they stitched the paws down. I'm assuming it's made by a taxidermist. I have no idea whose category this would fall into. But it is quite old, and the leather that they used here for this front flap, which I think is the only thing here that's not armadillo, is this. And so the leather here where it was folded over, it all broke and fell apart there. And it's really kind of a brittle, I think it's pigskin, which is probably what I'm going to look at on fixing this. So the first thing I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to laminate leather to the back side of this. Let me get you off of the fisheye. I'm going to try to laminate leather on the back side of here and stitch around here. Now this leather on the back is extremely brittle here. And I don't want to remove all of it, but I think I may remove some of it here because I don't think it adds any value to it. And my goal is to laminate this with another layer of leather, and I think I'm going to use pigskin. So I'll glue it on here and I'll come all the way down, because this area here where it does get flexed a little bit, This leather on the front, I think, is in pretty good shape, but this leather on the back, it's all cracked and falling apart. And I thought if I could, I would bend these prongs back, pull this up, laminate the back, sew around the outside, and put that keeper back together there. So that's going to be my attempt, and I'm going to bring up an extra flap of leather that I can then sew into its, I guess I'll call it the neck, the collar here on the top part of here. Now the leather they used here, that seems to still be in pretty good shape. The lady asked me about cleaning it and maybe conditioning it some, and I'll play with that some, but my main thing I want to do is fix this. Now my fallback is if I cannot laminate and then sew on here, I don't believe that this is, I think this is just hide, rawhide, not rawhide, sorry, cowhide. And if I need to, then what I'm prepared to do is to remove this part here, which is its face. You see its eye there and its nose. That I'm prepared to remove this from here, make a whole complete flap for the front and reattach it, which is maybe the easiest way to go here. But I know she wants the project to be as original as possible. And yeah, can you imagine? Isn't that crazy? I think that's crazy. But that's that's my task for today. And go ahead. I was saying earlier, it's like, I don't stay in my own lane very well. You know, I like to help people. Give you a better view of it while you're sitting here. So I like to help people when they've got a project that means something to them. And this one here, if it was part of, like, it was owned by grandma or something like that, it'd be cooler. The lady that found it, she found it at, I think, an estate sale. But still, I mean, it's such a cool piece. That's my task. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to determine whether or not I can create a stitch line here. Because if I do this, what my idea is that I would laminate a piece of, I think I'm going to use pigskin here, fold it back over itself, come out here about a ½ an inch to make a flap, and then go the other direction so that it ends up with a sandwich and extends this out here about a ½ an inch. Through that, I think then I can sew back into these holes that are already here as part of that. And I'm hesitant to remove this build-up here, because I don't want to mess with that. And I'm afraid that if I start messing with that, then those are loose and then it causes other issues. So that's going to be my goal here. And then I'm going to clean and condition the complete thing. And then the shoulder strap here, it's really not in horrible shape. The knot area here is pretty tired, but I think if we can get some conditioner on here, it'll help that. So, and I hadn't even thought about removing the face of this until this morning. I've had this now for a couple of weeks, waiting for it to have its turn, its day in the show here. And I hadn't thought until really I was about ready to film this about removing this face piece and attaching it to a new flap. So I'm going to actually probably pause here, and I'm going to think on that here probably for the rest of the day, and I'll come back tomorrow with my final decision here. But that might be a smart way to go. Obviously, it could get complicated taking that off of there, but I don't think it's going to be too bad. I can see here where it was sewn onto this piece, and I'm assuming, I know, it's a big word, that I can come back and do the same thing. Here's the thread here, and here, and here, and I'm assuming it's glued on there, so I would need to take a skiving knife and cut that off and relaminate that. I guess the next thing is, can I get the color right? But you can see it's already darker than this. So I think I'm going to park this, and I'm going to think about it for the rest of the day, and then I'll come back. But for you, it'll be the very next clip. Okay, so it's not the next day. I did think on it for a while, and I talked with the owner of the bag and explained my concerns. I feel confident that I could sew another layer of pigskin on the back and bring it up and have it here as a flap. But I'm less confident in how durable this leather is going to be here. It's already failing here. And I've been really stressed about trying to figure out how to make the holes without putting more stress on it. I thought about drilling each of the holes, which would be the way to go, I think. But I've decided I'm just going to remove the face from here, use this, create another complete flap on here. I'll layer it up. I'm not going to put, it looks like they had a place there for an address. I'm not going to put a window in it, but it'll be finished on both sides. And I think that's the direction to go. So, well, they say a journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. So I guess we're getting ready to make that first step. And in looking at this, it looks like that what they did is you have the face of the armadillo here, and then it's got another piece of leather behind it sandwiched together there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my breath, and I'm going to take a very sharp knife here, and I'm going to see if I can get around here. There are some threads on the back. I'll clip those, and I'm going to see if I can remove Mr. Armadillo. What if it's a lady? I'm going to remove the armadillo face from the front of the flap, and then I'll pull this hardware out here because it doesn't look like it's overly secured, and I'll use that on the next one. So with that said, make sure my tip is nice and sharp here. Are you holding your breath? I am. Let me cut these first. Just also brittle. So you can see that stitch comes here, 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 and here. And you can even see that the armadillo leather here, it's having a hard time as well. Dried out, I suppose. So I'm going to go in between there. Oh. I'm feeling better about this choice already. Ew, that's the inside of it, and then this is the leather they lined it with. So I think I'm going to reline that armadillo face here, and then I'm going to remake this piece. So let's see how thick we are here. 6.5. 6, probably kind of depends where it's at. 7.5. So I've got some leather over here. I've got some 3 to 4 and 2 to 3. So I'm going to go source some leather out of those. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the 3 to 4 for the face of it. So I'll get that all drawn out here. And then I will, I need to get it dyed. I need to come up with a color that I like. It's kind of splotchy looking too. Maybe that's just the treatment that they put on there. So I think I'm going to go darker, more in the range of this, because the face of this is really dark. So I think maybe I need to stick with that motif that they had there of the flap being dark. That would probably be... I think it's going to be an easier color for me to match. So let me, you don't need to come along as I roll out leather. So I'm going to go cut out some leather. I'm going to get me just a couple pieces that are going to represent what's going to go on here. The next question, and I think I know my answer for it, is you can see here where this lacing that they used around here, they stitched that on there. And I don't think I want to remove this because I'm afraid I'll loosen up all that lacing. So I'm probably just going to leave this little bit of broken off leather in there, and my hopes are that I'm able to stitch through here. The holes are clear. The only thing that's not, it's got a fabric liner in there, so I'll be pushing through that. But I'll sew through where those holes are. Yeah, that's going to be my best plan. That way I'm not putting any additional holes or stress in that area. So let me go cut that out, and then I'll come back here in just a little bit and we can talk about the next step. I have a couple pieces of some vegetable tan leather here. And originally when I was talking with my client on this, I was going to use this leather here. Obviously this piece is smaller, but this is pigskin, and it's really a pretty tough leather. And my intention was originally to line this and then come over here, and I was going to do a doubled back seam and sew it on there. So, you know, that's very durable, but the veg tan leather will be extremely durable, and I think we'll do a good job. And I think I know what color leather I'm going to go with, or I should say what color dye I'm going to go with, but I'm going to lay this on here, and I'm going to trace it out. I'm on the outside here of what the stitching they did, so I'll be trimming back a little bit from there. But I'm going to wait and do that, I think, after I get the two layers layered up. It looks closer to my arm than it is. Someone's going to say something. The thing about this knife, if you get up in here in this tighter circumference, trying to keep from slipping here, the tip is easier to make that turn than the wider part. And that's one reason why the knife is shaped the way it is. This is a little bit dried out veg tan here. I'll be oiling it a little bit here when I get it dyed. But I also thought maybe that a little stiffer would be better for the flap, so it doesn't become floppy. Cool. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and dye this, and I'm going to dye it in color I call dark mahogany. So let me set up and we'll do that next. The color I refer to as dark mahogany is a mixture of the Phoebe's mahogany and dark brown. I've said before that I think that the dark brown is kind of just a little bit of a flat, no-life color to me, and I like the mahogany, but it seemed a little bit red. So when I started experimenting a little bit with different colors, the first thing I did was mix those two together, and it's probably my most used color that I have. And it helps obviously that I have you know, lots of examples of it made, so when people are looking they see that. And a lot of times I dip dye, but it's going to make it probably a little darker, and I thought a lighter version of itself would be a better way to go. So that's why I'm not dip dyeing it. It's a small enough piece, it's easy to do here. I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to oil it, and when I come back I'll be ready to work on the face of the Armadillo. So I'll be back here in just a little bit. I thought that while I'm waiting for that to dry, I would go ahead and replace this piece of leather. This is what was on the back side of the Armadillo face here. And I thought I would, since I've got it apart, I might as well replace this piece here. And this is going to be the piece I'm going to replace it with. It's a little bit thicker. This is 2 ounce here, and this is 3 ounces there. I have a little bit of a dilemma here. I think I know which way I'm going to go, but you can see that the Armadillo hide itself is a little bit brittle there, and the other one wasn't glued on there, which made it easy to replace that part. But I'm really concerned about the hide of the Armadillo degrading, so I'm going to go ahead and laminate these together here with some contact adhesive, and I'm going to dig out the thread before I do that, and I'll be going back through these same spots to sew this together when it's finished. So let me grab my contact adhesive here. I like unusual projects. If you've got an unusual project in mind, reach out to me and let me know. And, you know, maybe it'll be your project idea that I work on next. I will say, it's interesting doing this. I wouldn't have guessed I'd be working on an Armadillo purse if you'd asked me a few weeks ago. While that's drying, I want to take this hardware off of here. And I don't think I'm going to clean this up. I don't want the purse to look any newer than it has to in this process. You can see it wasn't exactly cut square. It's a little out of square. This one area here where this leather's delaminated, I'm going to take a toothpick and work some in there and get that supported again. Well, I thought I was going to use a toothpick, but I'm too lazy to walk inside and find one. I pushed it together to get the contact adhesive kind of worked from one end to the other. I'll pull it apart, let it dry, and then we'll put it back together when it's ready to be used as a contact adhesive. I'm not going to hammer on it. I'm going to use this as a template for the placement of the face on here. Let me poke these holes out here. This is where it was sewn on. And I'm going to sew it on using the same areas on the Armadillo. Where's the other hole? Must be right there. Oh, there it is. All right. Let me get rid of this. I'm so glad I made this decision. This is so brittle. You can see what I was working with there. I'll line this up on here. And now I'll make my little imprints on my replacement leather. Wish I could think of something to do with the ears. The ears are pretty tired. I'll go ahead and mush this together now. I'm going to take and sand these so that they're flush with the original hide. I thought while we were waiting I would do a little bit of a Armadillo facial here. I was kind of curious to get this, I think it's just dusty more than anything. I was thinking about a steam facial. I thought maybe that would be good. Oh, all kidding aside, I wanted to get into it here a little bit slowly because I wanted to make sure that the finish wasn't affected by a little bit of water. This is just water, no soap even. The sheen on the bag made me believe it maybe had some of the leather lacquer that has been popular through much of the last 30 or 40 years. I thought about trying to replicate the ears, but I just don't think that's going to work. There we go. A little facial. I'll set this over here. Let's take a look at this now. I think the color, I think it's going to work. This will darken up a little bit. I'm going to put a sealer on here. And I think this was not adhered with adhesive. It was just sewn on. I think I'm just going to do the exact same thing on this one. So let me go ahead and we'll put some Resin on here. The other one's pretty shiny, and I think Resin will probably work best. And if you're wondering, so far I dyed it. I did put some leather conditioning oil on it as well. And now I'm going to use some Resin here on it as well. I'd rather get the other piece laminated, but I like the idea of the threads being enclosed between the two layers. So I'm going to go back with that same thought process. I'm going to assume that this project was done by a taxidermist, and I'm going to assume there's a reason why he or she chose to sew it on instead of a different means. So I'm just going to follow back along in the footsteps here as well. Take a deep breath. I know you're holding your breath there. I am. This needle's a little bit thinner than the one I put on. Actually, that one's pretty good. I do have a little bit of a mix of needles that I've been using. I like these thinner ones, but I thought maybe it'd be easier through there, and we'll see. There was 2 threads in each one, so I'm going back the same. I'm going to use a needle to help these stay lined up. Maybe that'll help a little bit. Could use an awl, but I think this is a finer diameter than my awl is. Startle you? Didn't mean to, if I did. I wonder if the person that made this bag, however many years ago that was, I wonder if they ever thought someone would be working on it in the next century. I guarantee you this was made last century. And I'm not sure what the official knot is. I know you guys are getting tired of hearing that for an armadillo, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to be laminating this on here. I'm going to leave this string or this thread on the long side, and the contact adhesive between the two layers will hold that in place. So we have it sewn on here now. And I think it looks like the snout might be this way, just like a 32nd of an inch. So I'll keep that in mind when I am sanding and trimming this to size, to this size here. We can look at it on the back. Remember, I left it a little bit on the large side. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. Also, I thought on the bag, it seemed like it could have been a little bit bigger to cover the opening. So I think the next thing I'm going to do, I think I'm going to go ahead and laminate these two layers together. Let's go ahead and put these together. And I was thinking I probably should have maybe skived this a little bit here, but I think I'll get it wet formed a little bit. Might be a little thick, I think, on it. Tell you what, I don't think I'm going to trim it smaller. I am thinking on this pretty heavy though. I might skive that some. Let me do a little sanding on this. I'm going to do it by hand here, and I'll come back here in a little bit. So I've got the edges pretty close to where I want them. I laid this on top of here and marked out these four corners. Let me look at this hardware. Let's see, do I really need that big of a hole? It's got quite a bit of play in it, doesn't it? I guess not as much when you take into account these little nubs here. I know. Worst I could do is cut it off of here and go again. What do you think? Should I dye the inside? I'm leaning heavily towards it. This hardware is not even. It's skinnier on that side than that. Looks like I need to make that hole a little bigger or miter it here. I may have tipped the blade when I cut it. I think it's going to fit pretty good. I needed to decide. I think I'm going to dye it, but I really need to rethink this top piece here. I guess I should have skived both of those. Part of the thing is trying to figure out where that bend starts. So just kind of form this a little bit here. That's how it goes over the deal there. That hole's a lot bigger. Looks like it was sewn just like that. I'm half thinking about cutting it off and starting over. That's the thing, when you get on these projects like this, you can chew a lot of time up when you have to step back a half a step. Maybe that's more than a half a step. I have a customized Sean Woodson knife here. I used to come to a point here, and probably should still come to a point, but it got dropped and I broke that tip off of there. And I've thought about sending it back to him and seeing if he could reprofile it to bring that. He'd have to bring the cutting edge back a little bit to have that tip there. But I thought I would try it this way a little bit, and maybe I could give him advice on making a rounded tip. She is sharp. I need to get that curve out of there. I'll be working against that. Yeah, I'm taking all this liner off of it, I think. I think I need to get rid of these ears. I think I was working off the screen. I apologize. I trimmed both of these ears back. I'd left them wild on purpose, but it's working against me visualizing what needs to happen here. What could go wrong here? Plenty. Okay, it looks like he or she laid it out. You can see it's chewed up over here. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't like hard corners. And I know these two sides do not look even with each other. This hole, it may look round, but it is not lined up to be round. I think it's what's throwing it off is this guy here is off center and rotated. Okay, so there's a couple things I need to do. One is I need to create these holes here. There are holes. Let me zoom you back in. There are holes and this stitching all the way around here. And it kind of matches the lacing that is done here. So I need to recreate those holes and stitching. And then when I get up here, I'll come up around the top, but then that will turn into the stitching that holds this in place. So I need to do that stitching, I think, first. I'm going to do a little bit of edge work on this. I'll use my round over, burnish this. I know it's not going to be as exposed because of this stitching, but it will help clean it up and make it look proper as well. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time here working on, well, probably more than a little bit of time. I'm going to work on this edge and get this all sanded and burnished, and then I will lay out the holes. Let me show you how I'm going to do that. Once I get the holes made and all that done, then I'm going to come back and I will add dye to the back of this piece as well. So the way I'm going to lay out those holes is I'm going to do exactly like I've been doing. I'll find the distance in from the edge, like this. And you know what? I'll just use my creaser on that. It looks about right. And then I will find my distance between the holes, which it's not the same. You see that? There's close, there's further apart, further apart. Maybe they were trying to make up. I'll bet you when you go around this thing, closer probably helps this radius better. Yeah, and if you don't have one here at what would be the apex of this arch on both sides, then it would look funny there as well. I was talking with another artist in the valley, and she does jewelry, and she was talking about how much you can learn when you are repairing somebody else's work. You see ways to do it. You see ways that you think might work good, but then maybe don't. So I'm going to start right here. And I think there's a lot to learn in both cases. And you could probably learn by watching me make decisions. I'll say that, decisions. I'll say it lightly. I'm just going to lightly mark these. I'll finish doing that, but then I'll take my rotary punch here, smallest hole. Let me poke a hole here in this piece of leather and see how that looks. You can see it on this here. It looks about the same size hole. I think that's going to work. And I tell you what, these things like this bag, you know, you're working with obviously a skin from an animal, and it may not be symmetrical, and I think you have to be willing to kind of go with the flow of what you're working with here. And that is for sure what I've had to do on this, because you can see this side here is bigger. But I think that's what's going to work here. And then these holes, this line is how close I want to the edge, so I'm actually going to, I'm not centering on those little marks. Let me show you here one. It's going to be like that. So I'll go all the way around here, make those holes, burnish it, dye it. I've talked this enough. I'll see you here after a bit. All right, so here's where we're at now. I went ahead, I did use a little bit of dye on these edges of the ears that were broken off, just to touch those to get rid of that natural white color that was there. I completed the stitching around here. I'm ready to sew it onto the bag or to put this on, but I think I'm going to stitch it to the bag first and see where this lies. The clip that it goes on the bag is not set exactly right, and I want to be able to adjust the metal to it. And sealed the back, and I did the stitching, but I should have shared with you how I did that stitching. And there's not a real complicated deal, but a lot of times people ask me. So I went ahead and I punched out some leather here to show you how I completed that. And I left a tail here that I will work into the piece that I'm sewing it onto the flap. But to complete this, I go around this twice here. Then I come over to this one, and I go around that one twice from the bottom. and then I'll pick up this line that came from the other one. The first one here will not be in the same shape as the others. I'll show you here in a second. So that's how that first one, this is really the first one. And I started on the back side of the flap. You won't see that first one. So then go back through the next one. So it's 2 times through. I'm not pulling it necessarily crazy tight, just, you know, pulling it down to where there's not a bunch of slack. Then pick up this thread here from below and pull that over. And as you can see, it will form that. I don't know if it's got a name. It kind of looks a little bit like serging on the side of a rug, except for that's continuous. I did kind of lay them down so they're side by side, so they all have that same width look to them. And we'll just continue on around. So if you know what this stitch is called, if it's got one, let me know. But that's what I completed all the way around, and I used one length of thread that I thought would be enough, and I joked a little bit about not knowing, you know, how much is enough. So I just thought maybe it was a little bit easier to see on this piece of leather because the other one's all kind of dark. There you go. It's kind of a cool look. I might try to do that on on the edge of a belt. I know the thread will be the first thing to wear out because you have all that thread exposed, but it might be kind of cool with a contrasting look of something just a little bit different. Just like that. So I've got it stitched all the way around here. And before I sew it on, I think what we need to do is we need to address the condition of the bag. Let me grab it real quick. All right, so all I'm going to do to clean this is a little bit of water on a cotton ball here. And we'll just work in a circular motion to get it out of the texture of the bag here. And I like the white of the cotton swab, so if I start getting color, I know something else is going on. And then in these crevices here, I'll just use a cotton swab. I was watching a show, I don't know if anybody else watches it, it's a antique restoration show out of the UK, and I think they call these cotton buds, I think is what they refer to these. I may have to get something a little tighter to get down in that groove there. So I'm just going to take my time working around here. When I get up around the appendages here, it's a little bit tougher to work around. They probably need a little more of a manicure here. I'm not sure where this purse was stored, but it's definitely dusty. And I think I believe the lady bought it at an estate sale. So I'll continue cleaning around here, and I'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about if I found something to treat this. But like I said, I think it's got a clear on here that's not going to allow anything to absorb in, and I don't want to leave a gummy surface on here. So I'll just do a little bit more cleaning, and we'll be back here in just a little bit when we're ready to, I'm just going to say next step because it may change depending on my research here. Okay, so let me see if I can get started here sewing this in. I'm thinking, I know, it's a good thing to do occasionally. Don't want to get too caught up in it. I'll work my way across here, and then I may decide to pick up this other thread and come back the other way. We'll see. If not, I'll use the same thread, but then what I'll do is I will find that spot there. I'll back stitch this other thread in and tie it in so it can't go anywhere. All right, I'm somewhat nervous to do this. Let's see where it's going to come up. Oh, I think that's going to work. And the flap is darker than the rest, which is what I'm replacing. It was darker. And since we never saw it attached, I'm assuming it fits about the same way. And if you're noticing, you can see laces or lacing holes on both sides here. And that's the way the other one was. It looks like it could go that way a little bit. Part of the issue is this guy here. Here is center. Let me find something straight-ish. This is center right there. And this guy is off center. I'm going to take a break from this, think on that process a little bit, and come back. But right now, it looks like that will work to return this to use, and this leather will definitely outlast what was there, even if I had lined what was there. So I took it back off because I thought, even though we can see here where the other flap was, that it would maybe fit better if I moved it over one hole. So I pulled the threads back out, and now we're going back through and moved it over one. I was kind of hoping that where this is at would help hide that damaged area in his hide, but I think this will fit better as far as the flap goes. Yeah, that looks so much better. I know, through the magic of editing, you wouldn't have seen that. But it fits better. It's centered here between the paws better. And I'm not sure why I didn't catch that when I first went that way, but I didn't. I'll be back here in just a little bit. I know, it's kind of hard to see that guy, isn't it? I'll get him outside and we can get a better look at him in the sunlight. All right, so I like how it's centered more here. But then when I moved that, I ended up with this top shoulder off because I had built it to be on that other spot. So apart it comes one more time here. And I know this is the reason why a lot of people don't, take on this type of work. But I do think that regardless of how many times I have to work across here and work with this, that I will learn things from this process that will help me in other areas of my craft. So I'm going to undo this. And I don't know if you remember earlier, I talked about the fact that one side had to be longer than the other because of the way it fit here on the neck. Well, when I moved this over, and I should have marked which hole I was in there, but when I moved this over, that made this exaggerate that shoulder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unwork my stitching here, or this edge, whatever you want to call this decorative stitching. I'm going to unwork that and trim this hinge up further. So I'm going to cut across these, just going to follow these holes. I want to cut that thread. Not the end of the world if I do, but and then that same curve, I want to come down one more on this side. Now that is more in line with that. Okay. I'll touch up this edge once I've finished. Probably exaggerating this lift a little bit is that leather that's left in there. And if you missed it earlier, or if I edited it out, I didn't want to remove that because it's underneath this lacing, and then that lacing would all be loose. And my experience on that type of leather lacing is that if it stays in better shape if it's tight. If it gets loose, then it gets flexed back and forth, and in pretty quick order, I think it'll end up breaking. The one challenge I may have after doing this is I may need to, well, I'm going to have to rework that hinge point here a little bit because I've effectively moved, oh, that's the wrong way. Maybe I need to focus on what I'm doing here instead of talking to you all. So I'm going to string up another here, and I'll do a saddle stitch here to help hold that together, and we'll end up knotting that off. And I'll have to work on my hinge to make it there, but well, actually it looks like it's going to be about right. And then that really helps straighten up that shoulder there as well. We learn as we go, or we should learn as we go. I think that's a lot better. So I'll get this stitched up in place, and then we'll come back here in just a little bit, and I'll see what the next step is. It'll probably be putting this metal hardware back in. I finished all that adjustment. I've got it sewn back on. I do need to take a little dye to the edge there, so don't worry about that. I can tidy that up, and it looks so much better. It doesn't stand up so much. I effectively took a 1/4 inch off of this height here, and this leather I think is going to break in and look really good. The color, this is how dark it was before, so I think my color is really pretty close. And this leather, veg tan leather, it'll last a long time. So I think we're definitely in the right direction. And this guy here is not centered, and I was playing with it a little bit, and I think it looks better if I put it on here, this direction. I don't know if somebody made this in their shop or if they just adjusted it, but it's not cut even. these tabs on this backing plate. I was kind of surprised there wasn't anything, you know, mechanical other than these two tabs to hold it together there. I need to put something on that brass on the front. I don't want to scratch that. I can crimp it a little bit more. I thought I'd see how it fits here. Yep, needs to be crimped a little bit more. That crimping it narrows this edge up a little bit. I wonder how much it's going to get used. Is this going to be something you wear, or is this going to just be something you show people and show it off? But I think it looks pretty good. I need to condition the strap. Probably no need for everybody to watch me do that. It looks to me like it's, you used to be able to get the preformed bolo strings, and I think that's what this is. But I'll put a little bit of conditioner on there. I think really I'm done. I may, it's going to be at least a week before I can deliver it, so I may futz with it up here a little bit, just working this leather to soften it up to make it a little bit easier to close. But I think we are where we need to be. Hopefully this old antique hardware keeps lasting. I'm going to take it outside and we'll get some pictures where we can get better light. Well, there it is. What do you think? That crazy or what? I think it's pretty cool. That's crazy. I've never seen anything like this in my life. When the lady said she had a purse that she wanted to have repaired, I had no idea what I was going to be receiving to work on. But I think we've got something that works here, and I'll maybe see if I can get HR manager to model it a little bit. But I think it looks good. There's that one spot there of damaged armadillo on the whole thing. I think that's really the only damage. I was kind of hoping that my flap would cover that, and it does visually here. But where I had it sewed on, I thought it was going to work there. But you can see it really needed to be shifted that direction, which I did when I undid the stitching on it there. And I think shortening up the hinge point was the right decision. Let's we'll go back in the shop and we'll wrap up here on this. I tell you what, I'm positive she's going to be excited to get this back. I think it looks really nice. It is definitely one of the most unusual purses that I've ever seen. I've never seen anything like this in my life. An armadillo, when you see them in the wild, they're pretty cool looking. But the I tell you what, I think, I guess I'm a little bit lost for words. I usually know exactly what to say. I'm glad that the lady brought this to me. It's exciting to see it have a new life, and I think she'll be able to use it for years to come. The overall body, when I started doing a little bit of look at armadillos, and I've saw some videos on them as stuffed animals, you know, and then people are trying to repair them. This is in really immaculate shape compared to a lot of what I had seen there. The ears were damaged quite a bit, and all I did was take a Q-tip and touch up the exposed white edges that were there. If you saw at the beginning of the video, that was probably evident. So I did that, and I put a little bit of Reslin on them to help, you know, protect them. You know, that part is probably the most brittle part of the whole thing, were the ears. But I think it really looks pretty cool. I don't know that the HR manager would want one of these to wear around, and I don't know that I'll ever see another bag quite like this. I do want to thank, I know the ladies that this goes to, hopefully she's happy. By the time the video comes out, she will have seen it, and yeah, I hope she's as happy as I think she will be. But it's definitely an upgrade from this piece of leather that was on there, and it was all coming apart there. And if you remember, on the back side, it had that pigskin, and it's really brittle. And originally I was just going to laminate a new layer of leather on the back of this, and then have that as the hinge. As much work as I futzed around with getting it adjusted and getting it sewed on there in the right place to where it looked right, I don't think that would have held up. So I'm glad that they did not have this glued on there, because that was my next fret, was to get in there and start removing it. And it was just sewn on there in 5 spots. And that's exactly all I did here. I did sew, or not sew, I did contact adhesive a liner to the back of the face. The liner that was on here originally, I'm looking for it, this piece here, it wasn't sewn on there, but the hide of the armadillo itself was getting really pretty brittle, and I think by putting that on there, it really helped, because now that when I sew this, that new veg tan on the back side is helping carry that load on there. And you know, there is some flexing that goes on here, but I think it's well protected now. So anyway, that's really a cool project. If you've got anything like that, this looks really cool. If you've got anything out there like that you've worked on, send me some pictures. My email is in the video or my channel description. And anyway, I think, as I said before, I'm just kicking the can down the road here, but I do appreciate you being along. Recently reached 6,000 subscribers, and I can't believe there's 6,000 people that have listened to me out here rambling on. And I think I'm coming up on, I'd have to look. I'm somewhere around 1 million views as well. So I do appreciate all the support out there, and I appreciate people like this lady bringing me something really unique to bring to you, and I hope you like it. Hey, put a comment in there. Let me know what you think. It's all good. I don't care what you put in there. I mean, it'd be nice if it was constructive, but at this point, I'd take about anything. I do appreciate you being here with me in the shop today. Please like, share, and subscribe. But more importantly, I hope you have a great day. Better than this guy. He didn't have a great day some time ago. Have a great day.